Well, the Vietnam War divided Australians, and those veterans who returned weren't warmly welcomed like soldiers of the past. But this week, Vietnam veterans have been getting a very warm welcome from South Australian country towns as they walk from Port Augusta to Adelaide. Leah McLennan went along for part of the journey.
It's more than 40 years since many of Australia's young men fought and died in Vietnam. The men who came home are no longer spring chickens, and it's a long time since they saw military service. But in Port Augusta, this group of Vietnam veterans have pulled on the boots again and brushed up their marching skills. They're walking from Port Augusta to Adelaide, stopping in local towns along the way. The idea is to raise money for legacy and other veteran causes. But with most of the Vietnam vets now well into their 60s, the real aim is staying healthy. They've been in training for this walk for months.
People could probably get the impression, oh, these guys are over 60 or around the 60 mark and they don't do anything. But because most of our guys have got illnesses and problems, they have to keep their walking strength up. So before this, they were probably walking 5-6 k's a week, if not some a day.
Along for the walk is Victoria Cross recipient Keith Payne. He was awarded the VC for heroic service in Vietnam. But today, he says the rest of the troops might be showing him up.
I've got to pull them up, you see, because I can't keep up with these young 60-year-olds. You know, I'm 76. So I got to say to them, mate, right, you young 60-year-olds, just settle down a little bit, keep up with me. No, a great bunch of blokes. Their hearts are in it. It keeps the veterans healthy, keeps the mind active, gets them out of the house, gives them something to get up in the morning too. And of course they go for morning walks and their exercises for this, and everything.
While the men march, Keith Payne is visiting schools along the route to impart some of his wisdom. He says these talks aren't about encouraging students to consider a military career, they're about using his experience to bring a few home truths to the young people.
You can avoid situations in life, you can see them coming if you only use your noggin. If you've got a big flat foot with a lead boot on it, right, don't jump behind the wheel of a motor car. It's as simple as that.
Keith Payne says he doesn't want to make these talks about himself, but inevitably the students want to find out how he got his Victoria Cross.
I was the commander. I had to get as many of my people out of there as I could, and we were getting wounded and everything else out. So we started extricating from the position just on dark, and I decided that the best way to get as many off as I could was to go and do it myself. Right? So that's what I did.
What he doesn't tell the students is that he was wounded 3 times while dragging wounded soldiers to safety while under heavy enemy fire. Nevertheless, the students are impressed.
Very tough, I can imagine. Some of the things he'd gone through would be very cruel, but he seemed to be a very good commander by the sounds of him. Very good, very enjoyable. Gave us a lot of good advice to us, telling we shouldn't do anything to put our metal to the foot in cars, hoon around or anything, so you could kill your mates and everything, and you wouldn't want that. It upset a lot of people.
While Keith Payne is talking to the students, the rest of the men have left Port Augusta and are making their way towards Wilmington, the first stop on the way. They've broken up into groups and are taking it in turns to hit the road. Another veteran hitting the road not on 2 feet but on 3 wheels is Ollie War. He says his trike is his therapy. This week he's getting another form of therapy, getting together with men who've shared the same experiences as him.
I think you get the opportunity and it seems like you're back there 40 years ago. It's just some you haven't seen for quite some time, and they just that bond that you've got with them, it's very difficult to explain. I guess the other boys have said exactly the same thing, but really it's like the only people you kiss and hug besides your family are these blokes.
Frank Gordon says the camaraderie of former vets is one of the best parts of the trip. He says they understand each other, even though the conversations are usually about anything but the war.
The usual men's things, football for one, is the beer cold enough, what's to eat, families, normal things that men talk about, the actual Vietnam War, or we might say who was you with or something, what unit you were with or whatever, but really don't go into that much.
Murray Renshaw is one of the organisers on the march. He says doing the walk has helped many of the veterans both physically and mentally.
The illnesses of these chaps are probably numerous and they don't like to talk about it, and no different probably to the local population, but a lot of it's war related, so we've got to have programs that keep them fit, keep them active. We don't want them sitting home looking out the window, so this is why we do the walks, basically because awareness of veterans in the country areas, they don't get that help that's needed. And not only the vets, their families as well. So we get out there, and if they see us coming through, and I think over the last 2 walks, we've probably got about 10 vets out in the open that beforehand wouldn't have done so.
This is just the first day of walking for these men. They've arrived at Wilmington, and from here they'll stop in Gladstone, Clare and Kapunda before ending in Adelaide. And they're already talking about the next trip.
We're probably planning another one for 2011, not too sure where we're going to go, but could be in wheelchairs, you never know now, we're getting that old.